The Americans break their silence.
No legitimate interest is served when oil and gas become tools of intimidation or blackmail, either by supply manipulation or attempts to monopolize transportation. And no one can justify actions that undermine the territorial integrity of a neighbor or interfere with democratic movements. Yet in Russia today, in many areas of civil society, from religion and the news media to advocacy groups and political parties, the government has unfairly and improperly restricted the rights of her people.
Unlike the Europeans, the Americans take Putin's nationalist and authoritarian offensive very seriously. Their world dominance could be put to question. They announced their plan to install anti-missile batteries in Eastern Europe. Putin retaliates.
Их военный бюджет в абсолютных величинах почти в 25 раз больше, чем у России. Вот это и называется в оборонной сфере их дом, их крепость. И молодцы, молодцы. Но это значит, что и мы с вами должны строить свой дом, свой собственный дом, крепким, надежным. Потому что мы же видим, что в мире происходит. Но мы же это видим. Как говорится, товарищ волк знает, кого кушать. Кушает и никого не слушает. И слушать, судя по всему, не собирается.
Energy is considered to be Russia's new strategic weapon, but its nuclear arsenal has 8,000 more nuclear warheads than the USA. Russia is the second biggest arms exporter in the world, supplying no less than 61 countries. Between energy dependence and arms sales, Russia possesses the two most powerful geostrategic instruments in the world.
The legacy of the Cold War is that Russia and the United States are still the two largest military powers in the world, particularly with regard to nuclear weapons. And since Russia has them in the thousands that can reach the United States, in terms of how U.S. weapons are targeted, Russia is still by far the primary target. Putin's willingness to sell military and nuclear technology to China, to Iran, to Venezuela, to other countries that the United States is at least suspicious of, if not actively hostile. But there could come a point where it goes beyond that, you know, where Putin tries to restore the kind of superpower proxy battles that happened during the Cold War.
И более того, мы развиваем свой ядерный комплекс сдерживания. Как вы знаете, недавно провели испытания новых систем баллистического оружия. В позапрошлом году успешно проведены испытания таких боевых комплексов, которых пока нет, и вряд ли раньше нас появятся на вооружении других стран мира.
We could see the world in 5 or 10 years when the Middle East is dominated by Iran, with Russia in background. When Americans are pushed out, humiliated, and kicked.
Russians today love Putin. If you look at approval ratings, I mean, he has 65% approval rating, with a huge approval rating. He may look as if he's attending to people's businesses because that's what we see on TV, and, you know, very much like Stalin, in fact. We saw Stalin attending to the public and you know, being an expert in everything from, you know, studying of languages to national politics to athletes, whatever. Putin is kind of the same thing. And while in Stalin's case, maybe he needed some sort of arm twisting for people to believe that he was the greatest, in Putin's case, somehow it all happens voluntarily.
This popularity is illusion. If you switch on Russian news every night, you will see Putin only with good news, never bad news. It's a joke that if Putin on TV screen, it's a good news. If somebody else, it may be bad news. But never Putin, only good news. He increasing pensions, he increasing salaries, he fighting oligarchs, he speaking with Bush, Schroeder and Merkel. Brezhnev was superstar, Stalin was superstar. In every authoritarian regime, there is only one superstar.
I know certain young people in business who are not interested in the past or in politics. Everything suits them in general. They're very numerous. These people belong to the system. They belong to the Putin system. They're ready to close their eyes to the lack of freedom. It doesn't seem necessary to them.
In Moscow today, consumerism is the new religion. The heart of the Russian capital throbs to the inflow of gas and petrodollars. The more you pay, the better. Moscow has overtaken the West at an incredible speed. No other capital in the world counts so many millionaires. Luxury stores, giant advertisements, top-priced cars, casinos. A new middle class has emerged in Moscow, doping retail sales. The richest buy yachts, private jets, works of art, skiing resorts. In London, where the most expensive properties are the new dachas of the Muscovites, some business tycoons even invest in famous football clubs. While near Moscow, the trendiest create country clubs, Russian style.
Putin's regime is very good in creating illusions that reflects the general belief that Russia's economy is growing, it's all blossoming, and of course, in the center of Moscow, you will get these feelings. If you start traveling 50 miles outside of center of Moscow, it's like taking a ride in a time machine. So in St. Petersburg, you don't have to go that far. It's about 100 meters from Nevsky Prospect, one way or another, and you are immediately entering the Dostoevsky St. Petersburg of the 19th century.
Of the Soviet regime, like the intellectuals and the former dissidents that support the Sakharov Foundation, are the targets of Putin's regime, as in the days of Yuri Andropov. These men and women contested the injustice, the repression, and the very essence of the Soviet system, and often paid for it in the Gulag.
Nobody in my generation thought that one day we would see the end of the Soviet system, the fall of communism. When it finally happened, we thought it would never return. But it has.
The presidential elections of 2008 are approaching. The pervading atmosphere created by the regime incites acts of violence towards its opponents. Disillusioned, one of Putin's former advisors, Marat Gelman, has created an alternative movement where art is the means of expression. His gallery is ransacked.
I was afraid they'd decide to finish me off, so I started to shout. One of them told me to shut up, and I shouted even louder. The other one threw the computer at me, and then they left.
Not all young people have been won over by Putin, like the members of Nashi or the Young Guards.